What is up, guys? Jacob Rothenberg here. I've decided to make this video because I've been so inundated with private messages, direct messages about how to sell your Amazon KDP account. Now, if you watched my prior video, you'll know that I was successful with selling off my KDP business earlier in the month, and I've already made a new Amazon account. So I decided, hey, I could have made a course about this. I could have maybe included this info in next year's update to my $47 course. But hey, I'm in a good free Samaritan mood, so I've decided to release this info to the public for free since no one is really talking about it openly, and it's something that should be discussed and talked about. So with no further ado, here's all the info on how to sell your KDP account, along with a basic overview on the whole process and frequently asked questions related to the whole transaction, since I've been getting a lot of questions. Now, disclaimer, I am in no way affiliated with any sales broker or auction site. I don't represent anyone. I'm not talking on behalf of any company. So just getting that out of the way, I don't get a kickback or commission if you decide to sell your business and you mention my name. I mean, please do mention my name, but I don't get a single cent from it. I'm just giving you info. I'm also not an expert in the realm of selling KDP accounts at all. Okay, I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude, a guy who was successful with selling the business. And I'm finding out a lot of my colleagues are quietly doing so as well. A lot of friends have sold off their account this year, and I'm finding out more and more. Everyone seems to be selling off their accounts and are just keeping quiet about it while it is lucrative, and it's probably the best time in the history of internet businesses to sell a KDP account. So, as such, info given here is subject to change from the time of this recording. It's October 2021. If you're watching this at a later time, the certain info might change with regards to valuation, the processes, etc. So just take that into consideration. Now, selling your Amazon KDP account, how to do it. There is a company called Empire Flippers at empireflippers.com that is a broker for online business transactions. So they help facilitate online businesses with selling off their entities and assets. So if you've got an Amazon FBA business, if you have a popular blog that is monetized, if you have a Amazon KDP business that you'd like to sell off, they can help you broker and make that sale happen. So everyone right now seems to be using Empire Flippers. I don't see businesses go for sale on Flippa with regards to KDP. And I don't see FE International as like a premier place to sell your Amazon KDP site. You can look into it. I've heard of one guy who has, but for the most part, I'm going to be talking about the Empire Flippers way of selling your account and all the way how they facilitate the sale. So once you do sell your account, you will get a lump sum of the money, of the proceeds, based on a valuation assigned by Empire and a final price negotiated between you and a buyer. So you will get a sales listing based on a valuation from Empire Flippers, and from there your buyer and you will negotiate a final price, and once agreed upon, that is what you're going to be receiving, minus a 15% commission from Empire Flippers. That is their broker fee. So consider the 15% commission from the final price agreed upon. And in your personal territory, federal and state taxes you might be liable for if you decide to report the sale. And this will involve the migration of the actual Amazon KDP account. So contrary to what other sources have said, YouTubers, coaches, and such, I don't know why people have said you're just migrating the books. Maybe that's how it used to be done, or people are just spreading misinformation and haven't gone through the process themselves. But you will be giving up your Amazon KDP account, and that includes your personal Amazon.com account, which I'll talk about in a bit. So the most common question I've been getting is the valuation. Like, how much is your account worth? So the valuation, it's not something that you come up with. It's determined by the broker, Empire Flippers, based on multiple factors. And I've seen so many different variables, but the most common ones is the age of your account, the stability of the revenue, and your net income that your account produces, the quality of the books that are in your account's catalog. Do you have one book making all the money in the business? If it's just one book, that's kind of a high risk for the business because one book can fall down and therefore the whole business falls down. Now, on contrast, if you have many books, dozens or maybe even hundreds of books with a high number of reviews, that is actually in your favor. For my account specifically, I was given a higher multiplier because I had hundreds of reviews on my most popular books. So, to each their own, and whether that's really relevant or something to take into consideration with the quality of a KDP business. But in this case, it is considered into your valuation. Now, you are assigned a multiplier based on your monthly net income from the past 6 to 12 months. So this does not just mean, you're evaluated based on your revenue. We're talking about revenue minus all expenses, whether it's writing, pre-production covers, formatting, blah, 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 your VA, ads, all of that needs to be factored in to determine your net income. And Empire will determine the pricing period of how that's going to be translated to, whether it's 6 to 12 months, they will determine. Now, from what I've seen and what other people have reported on their sale, the average multiplier is currently 40x. And to translate that very simply, that is 40 months worth of your monthly net income on average. So let's just say your monthly net income over the last 12 months averages out to be $1,000, and the multiplier you're given is 40x. You're going to be listed at $40,000, which, if you just do the quick math, that's a little bit over 3 years worth of your monthly net income, and that's, to me, insane. That's very, very, very high for a valuation on online business, and you should consider taking that into a motivating factor to sell your business. Now, with KDP, I've seen 35x as kind of like the low end for a default multiplier, which is still amazing. I would list at 35x, no problem. And I've seen as high as 45x, which is crazy, bonkers. So, if you haven't gone through the process of talking to Empire and getting evaluation, for now, just try to factor 40x as the multiplier you'll be working with for calculating how much you can sell for. Now, how long does it take to complete a sale? I'll just tell you very upfront, smaller accounts, those that list for, let's say, under 100,000, tend to sell very quickly. There are more buyers that have the money to buy an account for $100,000 or less. I'm sure people buy businesses with a loan or even with their credit card, perhaps. It's very possible to do so, and therefore it's much easier to find a buyer for a smaller account. Now, big accounts, those that list for at least $500,000, maybe even $1 or $2 million, can take several months to sell if they even sell at all. There's just more exclusive buyers that are able to afford buying such a large business. And when you have a business that large, there's just more due diligence that's needed to verify the stats that are being reported. So, if we're handling a business that's $1 million in size, you'd want to see every invoice, make sure that everything has been reported accurately with, revenue, with expenses, make sure that the traffic sources that the buyer is claiming gives the sales are actually real. And you want to make sure, why did this month have a spike in audiobooks? Was it the promo codes? And if so, how will that impact, the current performance, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot more due diligence that's needed with a bigger business. Now, I can just tell you from my first-hand experience, it took me only 2 months to sell my business because I'm a quick communicator. I work very quick. My buyer was very gracious and communicating quickly as well. There was very little back and forth in terms of lag time. So from the time I filled out my P&L statement to receiving funds, I took 2 months, and that's considered fast. Now, upon applying to sell your business on Empire, you will be asked to fill out what's called a profit and loss statement. So dating from when you started your account, I did start mine in 2017. I was asked to fill out all revenue and expenses from 2018 going back for my business. And so I had to list all of my revenues for each territory from Amazon KDP, whether that's US dollars, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, GBP, yen, every territory must be reported. Likewise with expenses. It is very tedious, I would say even painful to do, but hey, it's worth the money you'll be getting if your account sells. So you're just going to have to put up with it and provide all documentation necessary and asked for. Now, based on the P&L, Empire will determine if you're eligible to sell your business. Now, reasons why you might be ineligible is if your monthly net averages to be below $1,000 per month. Empire does not really deal with like super small accounts, so you'll be asked to have a business that nets at least $1,000 a month on average. Also, if your revenue has declined by more than 50% in the last 12 months, meaning let's say of October last year, I netted 10,000, and this year I netted in October 3 or 4,000. That's going to be a disqualifier because you need to show that you are selling a stable business. You have to keep the buyer in mind that people want to buy a business that is somewhat stable and is not declining too quickly. No one wants to buy a business that later dies the next month that they have it in operation. So you do need to show stability. Now, that being said, along with other factors, perhaps if you're eligible, there are going to be factors such as the accuracy of your reporting, if you are able to provide all documentation for your books as far as like where you outsource them from, just making sure that all of your expenses are accurate. And if that's all verified, you'll then be approved to sell, and Empire will determine a list price for your business, and you will be listed afterwards, usually on the next Monday. Now, let's say you go through the whole process, you're listed, time passes, you found a buyer, and you've agreed upon a price. You will likely be interviewed by the buyer. So remember, a buyer is going to act as like a detective to make sure that what they're going to buy is an asset worth purchasing, and that you as the seller have accurately represented all the stats that you've given, and that you're not some scammer trying to get a quick, easy buck with some kind of scam operation. So when you talk to your buyer, you want to build trust and confidence that, number one, your business is worth buying. Why do you think it's worth buying as opposed to starting from scratch? Be prepared to answer that, along with just proving with anything that is being asked that your revenue is real, your expenses are real. Where did you outsource certain things? Provide the real sources to that. Now, don't give away the whole dog and pony with your keywords and such. Don't give away the magic behind how you're able to monetize your account so effectively. If that's the case, you can save that until after the sale. But you want to give a little bit of info as to what your successful niches are and why it's worth buying as a business. Now, once you get to the point of negotiating a price, a smart buyer is always going to haggle you down. I can't imagine a buyer immediately agreeing to list price for a KDP business, or even like other than the purchase of a house, maybe even like a new car. Have you ever purchased a new car at sticker price? I don't think so. So, if a buyer has any intelligence, they are going to haggle you down, and be totally prepared for that. Be prepared to negotiate. It's part of the game with buying and selling anything of value. But keep in mind, also stick to your guns. with a price that you're comfortable selling at. So let's say your business is listed at $60,000. Think up in your head a reserve price that you're comfortable selling at. Maybe you're willing to sell at $40,000. So if a buyer wants to perhaps lowball you at 35, so no, that's way too low. Can we maybe meet in the middle between 35 and 60 at say $50,000, and then try to find a good middle ground that both you and the buyer can be happy with. Now, something that no one ever talks about. As a negotiation tactic, you can always offer extra support and coaching after the sale of the business in exchange for a higher sell price. So this is something that I consider like, hey, I can settle for a higher sale price if you'll agree to extra support that I'm willing to give you, in terms of calls, access to me, coaching, because I personally coach KDP. And if you're a seller, you likely can coach the business as well, access to courses, whatever you can do, try to offer that as, icing on the cake in exchange for a higher sale price. Keep that in mind. Now, let's say you've agreed upon a price, everything's good to go. It's time to now migrate the business. Assuming, the buyer escrowed the funds over and all that, we're going to be ready to migrate the business. Now, you will be transferring your actual Amazon KDP account. You are not just transferring books. I want to make that very clear at this point in time. I don't know why other sources are indicating that you're just transferring the books. Maybe it's different, on Empire compared to other experiences. Maybe it's just different now compared to earlier in time, but you will be giving up your actual Amazon KDP account. This does include your personal Amazon.com account and its assets. Now, this is something that I didn't find out until the point of sale. So this was the only part that honestly frustrated me. But, for the sale price, it's totally cool. But that means, you will be giving up your Amazon Prime if you've just paid for it. You will be giving up your order history on Amazon.com. You will be giving up Amazon photos if you store photos on your Amazon.com account. Please delete that before your buyer gets the account. You will also lose access to the audiobooks you bought on your Amazon.com account. So just be ready for that. And as far as the process, it's just a matter of Empire, of course, facilitating it to where your buyer and you will go on a Zoom call and transfer the account by just changing the details on the account and then emailing KDP that the business has moved to a new buyer so that the buyer doesn't get banned. So once that's done, there is typically what's called an inspection period to where your buyer actually has control of the account now and you don't. And well, actually you do if you share the password, but they'll do their due diligence to make sure all the info that you've given about the business is accurate. And, they'll just check over everything, make sure that, if you've reported, your Fortnite book to be the main driver of your business and perhaps that book is now blocked, that could be a problem in facilitating the sale. If there's anything just funny about your account that you didn't report prior, that could get flagged. If you lied about your revenue, if you lied about your expenses, this is the time where you'll likely get caught, and that will cause the sale to get annulled and maybe even get you banned from Empire. But this is the point where the buyer is going to do their due diligence to make sure everything looks good and verify everything is consistent that you've reported. And once that's done, the buyer will report back to Empire saying, inspection is clear, or they'll waive the inspection completely, and you'll be moving on to getting paid. So with getting paid, this is something that concerned me as well. It was one of the questions I asked up front because, as we all know, Amazon KDP is a net 60 business. ACX is net 30. You will still be paid unreceived royalties. So, it's October. Had I continued the operation and I sold the business today, I would still be paid my August and September royalties. Empire will facilitate handling that. So your buyer will still receive those royalties, but then they'll wire that amount over to Empire, which Empire will wire to you. Basically, just to keep it simple, don't worry about it. Empire will handle it. You won't lose your unreceived royalties. You will still be paid. So don't worry about that. Now, for bigger accounts, and I didn't go through this, but I've heard of this before, where there might be what's called a holdback clause, in which a portion of the sale is paid out once X metric or performance is achieved. Just because, let's say you're selling an account that makes $50,000 a month. Well, that's pretty high stakes. Maybe a buyer will say, hey, I want to be smart and mitigate risk. I'll agree to buying the business for $500,000, but I will only pay you the full amount once we really prove that this account makes $50,000 a month for 3 months straight. So I'll pay you up front $250,000, and I'll pay you the other $250,000 after the holdback clause has been achieved. Now, I just made those numbers up. Don't think that's literate, but there's certain conditions that people can set as a holdback clause just to mitigate risk and to make sure that performance is consistent with what you reported for your business. So can take that into consideration if you're selling a bigger entity. Now, what is really cool, and I didn't know this prior, is that there are several payment options for the sale of your business. You can be paid in Bitcoin, which I wish I did. Or what I did was just get a bank wire. Likewise, you can accept ACH if your international Payoneer works fine as well. So those are your options. I was paid within 24 hours of my buyer agreeing that everything was transferred to them and that everything was good to go. The Empire paid me very quickly. And keep in mind, and I had to ask this as well, Empire does not automatically report the sale of your business to your government's tax collection agency. Empire will not submit a form to the IRS. If you're a resident of the United States or you're selling a US-based business, they will not send a form to the IRS for your sale. So you have two options. You can, number one, ask for a tax form for your accountant's use. They can just be even as simple as like a report of the sale of your business that your accountant can then fill out the right tax form for your taxes. Now, everyone's just different from country to country, so I'm keeping this very broad. But if you're US based, you can just receive a confirmation, a receipt of your sale, and then your CPA, whoever, can fill out the right tax form to report the sale of your business, and you'll pay capital gains. If you're from another country, I'm not an expert in that at all, but just consult with your CPA if you're selling your business and you want to know how to report taxes for it. Number two, as far as options, I don't recommend this, but you can choose to be a cowboy or cowgirl and not report the sale of the business at all. What you can do if you want is, I don't even recommend this, but you can choose to be paid in Bitcoin and just kind of like hold the funds because there's no proof that you received, currency, like real currency in your bank account, and there's no tax form submitted. So if you want to do that, you can and just hold the Bitcoin until you're ready to cash out. I'm not recommending you do it. I didn't do it. I just got my money. I played it very clean, but that's something you could maybe consider as well. But if you do, you're going to end up on Squid Game and you're going to be, a very dead person. Anyway, after you sell your account, this is something that I get asked too. Making a new account, remember, and this is something you have to think of when you sell your account as well, if you're considering it. There is going to be a non-compete clause. Now, non-compete clause does not mean you cannot open a new account. You are definitely able to open a new KDP account. However, as upon the non-compete clause states, you cannot compete against your buyer. So if you sold a finance niche brand on Amazon, you sold a brand of finance books related to paperback, ebook, and audio, you are not supposed to compete against your buyer with making your own new finance brand of books. Likewise, if you sold, let's say, a fiction romance business, you cannot make a new pen name and compete against your buyer, even though, you could make the argument that, everyone in KU doesn't compete against each other. Still, you have to respect the non-compete clause. Yes, it's true that we all use pen names, and there's no real hardcore way of verifying if you created a brand that competes against your buyer, but, just keep that in mind. Now, you should be 100% fine in making a new KDP account with the same name, your birth name, your LLC entity, and bank details. I'm not saying I'm the expert on this, but I've done it. I've been okay with producing at least one book on my new account. I have had no problems so far. I don't see why it would be a problem because your buyer has already changed all the credentials related to your former business. They've changed the name, the address, the entity, even the bank details, and they've already emailed KDP that the business has transferred to a new buyer. So very plainly, you only own one account. You're only operating a single account, and that should be fine. Now, something that honestly, out of everything, this is the only thing that actually pissed me off, was that I was going to lose my Amazon Prime access because my old account had Amazon Prime and my new one didn't have it, and I just don't like losing memberships that I prepay for. So I don't think this is even unethical. I think it's fine, to each their own. But before you sell your account, you can actually go to your log into your account and have a new email ready. Add that new email as a family member to your Prime membership, and then that will have your new email still keep access to Prime, and you'll still have access until the billing cycle ends for your Prime membership. So I paid my Prime membership annually. I paid it off in August. So I was like, well, darn, I don't want to lose that membership. I paid for it for another 10 months. So I added my new account's email as a family member, and it's got access to Prime still. I don't think my buyer has a problem with that. I don't think it can't be a disqualifying factor for selling your KDP business. So I don't think it's shady at all. But if you are someone that pays for Prime, you could save $100 by doing that trick. Just something I wanted to mention because no one talks about it. So that's about it, guys. Personal notes. I've been in the online space even as just a hobbyist for 15 years now. And, I was just a kid making $200, $300 a month with affiliate commissions, but I was still always interested in the internet marketing space. Now, back then, I've seen sites usually sell for 10 or like 15x. And I thought back then, like seeing AdSense sites selling for 20x, like, dude, that's almost 2 years income based on your monthly net. Like, that's really good. So, in this day and age, if you can get 40x for the sale of your business, 40x is extremely high for any online business. So, if you can sell for 35, 36x and get 3 years worth of your monthly net, that is incredible. So, if you're negotiating with your buyer, let's say you do list at 40x and your buyer haggles you down to 35x, maybe even 25x. That is still really good. Let's be honest, guys. It's nothing to hide in the closet. If you know how to build a business, a KDP business that nets $2,000 a month, you sell it for, let's just say, $40,000. All right. You will know how to make a new account that nets $2,000 a month again without spending all $40,000. You can probably do it with just spending $10,000. So I'll keep it at that. But it's just such a great opportunity to sell your account. So, I would encourage anyone that wants to sell their account to go ahead and do it because, at the very worst, you can just make a new account and just keep publishing books while having a stack of cash in your bank account. Now, something that I've talked about in prior videos, but it keeps coming up as a question. Jacob, should I sell now Or because I'm a low content publisher, should I wait for my 2021 Q4 income to roll out? Should I play out Q4 and then sell afterwards because of the valuation? Now, that's a great question. It's something that I asked Empire Flippers when I met them here locally in Vegas. So what you got to consider is your last year's Q4 performance versus what you project this year's Q4 performance to be. So let's say your Q4 last year was extremely good, and you think that your Q4 forecast is going to be weaker this year. You will want to actually list your business now because you'll get a higher valuation, including last year's Q4 performance compared to waiting and then listing this year's Q4 performance. Now, on the flip side, if you think that this year's Q4 is going to be much stronger, you're going to want to wait until after that's over with to list your business if you're looking for the highest valuation possible. Now, I've been monitoring this whole auction thing, this whole new variable with the KDP space. And I'll just tell you, it's getting a little bit more crowded with selling accounts on Empire Flippers. It's starting to get just a little bit saturated. So I have seen some businesses stay listed for sale for a few months with no movement as far as I can see. But I'm just going to tell you, it's actually going to be easier to sell now. Oh, and that's a typo there. I meant 2022. So it's going to be easier to sell now versus waiting for next year, 2022, and then saying, hey, I'll wait for Q4 and then list my account. Everyone is going to sell their account after Q4 is over. I guarantee you, next year, January 2022, the auction site is going to be chock full of dozens of business owners that want to sell their KDP account. So I forecast it's going to be much more difficult to sell next year versus selling now. Just my opinion, just my 2 cents. But I chose to sell now and forego waiting for this year's Q4. So I'm practicing what I preach. And for you, if you're very motivated to sell your account, honestly, if I were your brother or sister and I was getting a cut of the money even, I would probably just tell you to sell now versus waiting for next year. We don't know what's going to happen next year. We don't know how saturated it's going to be. We don't know if multipliers will go down to meet supply and demand for the sale of accounts. So, I think it's just such a great opportunity to sell your account now for a high valuation. So I would just do it now. So that's about it, guys. I think I've covered a lot with everything related to selling your Amazon KDP account. If you have questions, please leave them below in the comments, and I respond to most comments, especially if you have a question. Otherwise, guys, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching this video. I'll have more content for you soon, and the next video will be about scaling very quickly, especially with a new account. So stay tuned, guys. I've got more coming. Take care.